who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing. This is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome to the Wow Report. I'm Faye Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, here with the amazing, unique, incredible Tom Campbell, Chief Creative Officer of World of Wonder.
Fenton. It's nice to be here.
Hello, darling. And James St. James, who I love and adore, but you look a little sort of wan, is I think the word.
Well, it's because you make us start at 3 a.m. It's like, I don't know that I can do this.
Early bird catches the worm.
Good God.
You won't just do the show, James. You'll give the best performance of your life.
Now go out there and sparkle, Nene, sparkle.
See, we're coming to you live-ish from our Hollywood Boulevard adjacent studio.
Is the sun even up?
Yes.
Of course, it's a bright and sunshiny day. We're counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow! This week, what a week. Without further ado, Tom, number 10.
Number 10.
Well, this is a mini, very special edition of the Wow Report because it's happening on April 20th, 420.
What is 420, I asked?
Oh, it's Hitler's birthday.
It is Hitler's birthday. And that's what we're celebrating. There's nothing
Having a Nazi party.
Trump is doing enough of the Trump celebration. We don't need to do that.
Mein Kavifi.
Where, unless you guys have cheated and looked this up, do you know the origin of 420? That's what I'm here to talk about.
I did not cheat. I actually kind of didn't. I thought it was just all the drugs you want to do on that particular day.
Well, let's go.
I want drugs.
It's something different for everybody. Do you know the origin of 420?
I thought I did, but it flew out of my head just a second ago.
I always assumed it was the police code. 420. We got a 420. One out of 12. One out of 12. And I always just assumed that and went on with my happy life. It's not true at all.
What is it?
It is in 1971. Steve Capper, Dave Reddix, Jeffrey Knoll, Larry Schwartz, and Mark Gravitch were 5 high school students who were stoners, and they called themselves Waldo. It's like Waldo Steve, Waldo Dave. So because they used to hang out after school next to a wall. I don't know about you, but this sounds so much like my high school years.
Just continue in this vein for the next 45 minutes.
They had heard, this is kind of amazing that 5 high school students are responsible for 420, which is internationally known. And they had heard about somebody from their town who, because, marijuana was illegal, and had some crop of marijuana, and they went to the army or something. They were away, and they had this map to find the marijuana.
You're making all of this up.
I am not. It's totally true.
It's
totally true. And so they would meet at 420 at the statue in front of San Rafael High School in California, and they would meet at 420, and they'd get really stoned, and they would drive looking for the pot.
Now, how did this become an international thing?
They never found
before
out.
The internet.
There was their fathers. A couple of their fathers had something to do with the Grateful Dead. So it kind of leaked that way. But there's a reporter, Mike Edison for High Times, who took that story and published it, and it became 420. Became this shorthand, so they could say to each other, like, 420, meaning, do you have any pot? Or 420, we're going to meet you. They never found the pot. But I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Well, you don't strike me as a pothead. Are you a pothead?
I'm just doing research. I'm not. Listen. I don't drink or do drugs at all anymore for many years.
Were you a pothead?
For a couple weeks I was. I went to visit when I was a senior in high school. My friend Richie and my friend Bill Worth. Who's a doctor now, went to visit my sister at Boston.
I think there are larger scandals on the national landscape.
We went to BC, Boston College, to visit my sister. She lived in a high-rise with like 6 roommates, all girls, fabulous women, and they had just had their pot delivered. And they all had it in, remember when 35mm film used to come in that black little box? All of their...
Oh, that was, little pot
That's
containers.
where all their pot was. Mm-hmm. And because I had never done pot, they were like, oh, let's get Amy's little brother, Tommy, high. why. So for the week we were there, I just remember laughing so much, and they had no food because they're college students, and eating mustard sandwiches.
Ew!
And having the time of my life. We bought a little bong, we bought a little pipe at some head shop in Boston.
And then, even though you had so much fun, you never continued on?
We went back to Newport, New Hampshire, population 6,000, where I'm from. We brought pot with us. We smoked it all in probably some cemetery near a wall. And when we were out, we went back to beer. So that's kind of my.
And then you in college or anything, you never went back.
I was a big gin guy, and
gin makes you sin.
I know. The couple of times I would do pot as an adult, I would try to fit in with the kids, but I never knew where pot was going to leave me. Up or down.
And
I like to go up.
I was the nasal queen all the time. I was never a pothead. I would always overthink everything. I
You'd
would
get paranoid, right?
Yeah, and I would stare at my hands and think those are weird. And I was never ever a pothead.
Are you a pothead, Blake?
You should try it, Blake. You should try it.
Yeah.
I think I might try it today.
Yeah. Well, 420. Happy 420, everyone. And now you know. Now you know.
Pot is legal in your state. Go stimulate the economy.
Were you ever a pothead?
No, I've not had good experiences with pot.
I never did either.
I took edibles once, and that classic mistake of like, oh, nothing's happening. I'll eat the whole bar, and then just gone for days.
Well, but hold on. It is sort of
that explains
interesting.
last week's recording.
And this is I'm throwing my mother on here, but my mom, was very straight laced all her life and never did anything. And just recently, in these past couple of years, she's had chronic pain and she's had a bunch of operations and everything. And she's gotten my sister got her a pot card, and she at 84 years old, all of a sudden she said, the other day she was like laughing and she said, "Why haven't I done this my whole life?" And it was like for the first time in her life she understood why her kids were always potheads.
Gateway drug, get her on K.
If she starts doing dreads and stuff, let us
know.
Okay, James, what do you got from NASA? What is the number 9 thing that made you go, wow, this week?
Number 9.
Well, I went to go see Isle of Dogs. Did you guys know about this?
I saw the trailer. It broke my heart just looking at the trailer.
It's Wes Anderson, of course, who is twee beyond twee and precious beyond precious.
Yeah.
But always there's something to chew on there, and it's always very sort of it's highbrow. It's very the writing is always right there. And I don't know if you remember the Fantastic Mr. Fox that he did. It was a stop motion thing. It was George Clooney and Meryl Streep. This is the same thing. It's that stop motion like Rankin and Bass, like the old Rudolph and Frosty the Snowman that we used to watch when we were little, and it must take 100 years to make because it's like every single motion is captured with like a little bit like Robot Chicken. This has Bryan Cranston, Ed Norton, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, Frances McDormand, Scarlett Johansson, Harvey Keitel, Yoko Ono, and Tilda Swinton are the stars. Okay,
wow, that is.
And Yoko is absolutely hysterical. She's really good. She's fantastic.
Does she play a dog?
Yes.
Okay.
They're all dogs.
They're all dogs.
They're all dogs.
What's the story?
The story is it's in Japan, and there's all the dogs have come down with snout fever, and they all have to be banished to an island off of this city.
Trash Island, right?
Trash Island, yes. And it's a big landfill. And so all the dogs are there sort of running around together, and they're one thing we said, then there's a boy who crashes on the island, and they're all trying to get back to the island, and they're all trying to cure the snout fever and everything. And it's good. It's a long walk for a short joke, right? And it doesn't need to be 2 hours, but it is very good. The conceit is that the dogs all speak English, and the Japanese all get subtitled. They're all speaking Japanese. And a lot of people say that there's a controversy around this, saying that there's that's
sort of reverse racist in some way.
Anglo-centric or something.
It is, exactly. And that Wes, in doing this, is following in the long tradition of fetishization of Asian culture, and that why does there need to be a white person, and why is it the dogs are Anglo-white and they're the saviors and blah 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 blah.
The dogs are all different colors.
Well, as dogs are, but but they all speak with an American accent.
Oh, I see.
Did that upset your viewing pleasure at the time?
Well, you do keep watching it the entire time. You're thinking, is that racist? Was that racist? Is that cultural appropriation? Like you're wondering the entire time, and it takes you out of it. Although there was a Japanese writer who wrote for the New Yorker and did a story about it, saying that if you watch it and you're Japanese, there are a million Easter eggs in it and a million little things that are only Japanese people, only jokes that Japanese people will get. And there's a million, like they get it. There's some Japanese writers that really get the Japanese culture. And he said he wasn't insulted by it at all, but it does seem that a lot of people are up in arms about it. And I think that it's so beautifully done and it's so beautifully written in every single expression on the dogs, and every single time they roar like that, you just giggle and laugh hysterically. So I'm on the fence.
Does it have a happy ending?
Yeah. I mean, and it is, if you like Paul, or if you like Wes Anderson, you're gonna love this.
Is it for kids? Really?
No.
Yoko Ono's in it.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but
Well, was Fantastic Mr. Fox for kids?
I don't know. I never
What
saw
else
it.
has he done? Has he done any live action stuff? I always get him muddled up with Paul Thomas Anderson.
No,
right?
this is Wes. He did Fantastic Mr. Fox.
That's him. That's it. That's the
Well, Wes Anderson, though. I mean, he's done
I know,
the Royal Tannenbaums and Mount Rushmore and
What was that one in the hotel?
yeah. What was that?
Lost in
No.
Translation.
No, with Tilda Swinton.
The
It
something
was,
hotel.
Yeah, it was
Because he does all this super flat stuff.
Yes.
It's always
Yes.
very symmetrical, beautifully framed. Oh,
Yeah, no. I mean, you would go bananas for it.
Isle of Dogs is in theaters now.
Yeah.
All right. Number 8,
Number 8.
Golden Showers. I mean, why not, right? It's 420. Let's push the boat out.
No, it's probably the most Google search expression in the world.
Well, exactly what other presidential sex scandals have done for blowjobs,
yes.
I think Trump has done for golden showers. In fact, Pornhub reported a whopping 287% increase in searches for golden shower-related terms right after that story, the whole dossier broke.
I didn't even know that. I just assumed. I think 50 of those are mine.
I did read an article recently, the 5 reasons why the P story is real, and it's called "I'm a P-lever."
That's so good.
And it really lays out all the reasons why it possibly is true. And I want you to keep talking about this, and then I'll chime in.
Well, actually, I had an experience last night that I want to share. As this was about to happen, the person said to me, "You're about to have an aha moment." So here I was. I was at Sotheby's.
Okay.
In
there's
Century
something more?
City, and they are having a pre-exhibition for, let me just check what it is, Sotheby's Impressionist and Modern Art Evening Sale that's coming up on May 14th.
Are you buying Are you
In that exhibition,
No, stop.
No, I have to tell you a story, and then is one of Warhol's oxidation paintings.
Oh, right.
And do you know what the oxidation paintings are?
with the
I mean,
piss
that's what they're
painting.
called in polite society.
Yeah, the piss paintings.
And they're called piss paintings.
Yeah.
Piss paintings, yes. And Warhol did these piss paintings. Like
Well, no,
in
Warhol
70s,
wasn't. He would get the cute boys to come and pee.
Ronnie Cutrone. But actually, no, yes, you're quite right. Hustlers and ladies
Yeah.
and all sorts of things.
Lady Hustlers.
Lady hustlers. if
Can you
will.
explain the technique, please?
Okay, the technique is you can either just have a white canvas,
Sure.
or you can put down a coating, a copper sort of oxide on the canvas. Is it copper oxide? Hang on, let me just check that. Metallic pigment, yeah. Copper, and then you pee on that, and the coppery color sort of oxidizes. So instead of being a sort of copper color, it looks like the Statue of Liberty. It's a sort of lovely, lurid green.
But
And it ends up being a little Jackson Pollocky.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's why he did these things.
Yeah.
They were sort of an attack
On
on
the,
abstract expressionists.
sure.
Because de Kooning and co., they hated
they were
Warhol.
very nasty to Warhol.
Very nasty. Wouldn't be his friends, wouldn't let him in. And of course, then they even hated him more because Warhol turned the tables.
he pissed all
and
over him.
Pop art, pop art.
Yeah,
put them
they
in
were
the
they were
shade.
the movement that was right before Pop,
Yes.
and they were
Right.
the one that Pop was rebelling
And
against.
Pollock, if I remember my college fine arts course, he used to
Just drip.
So
Yeah.
it was
That's
a
Jackson
paint.
Pollock.
It was a paint peeing, if you will.
Well, exactly. So,
Okay.
sort of Warhol's revenge in 77, 78, he really did most of these, was to create these piss paintings. And I think they're really
Taking the
fascinating.
piss out of the movement. Yes.
Exactly. He's a piss artist. And
And are you buying one? Is
no,
that what this
no,
is?
I couldn't possibly afford it. But what's interesting, because they don't really get a lot of coverage. So some, like the Brillo boxes, the soup cans, we all think that these are the great works of art, but there's something a little bit about the piss paintings, right?
Well,
Which is, they even call them oxidation paintings, you know?
But charge more for that.
The thing is, each of these, they're completely unique works of art. I mean, Warhol created lots of soup cans, lots of Leonardo da Vinci's, lots of Mona Lisa's. I mean, created multiples of everything else, but every single piss painting is completely unique.
It would have to be. You can't really...
So anyway, long story short, I'm, as you know, I'm obsessed with Warhol, and we're doing a project, and I became friends with the director of contemporary art, and he said, you should come see this. And it's absolutely... I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing to see it in the flesh.
Now, also at Sotheby's, though, isn't that where the Zsa Zsa Gabor estate was being sold this week?
Probably.
Oh, I wish you would have gone to that.
I thought that was just done at her house.
No, you don't get to go to Zsa Zsa's house.
Well, I have friends that have pictures at her house, so.
You're
Friends of the Prince?
Okay, so we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll carry on counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow, this week. Hey, look, I have a quick question for you. What's the difference between a garbanzo bean and a chickpea? We'll have the answer for you right after the break.
Where did that come from?
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. We're counting down the top 10 things that made us go,
Wow!
This week, I'm Fenton. I'm here with Tom and James and Blake.
Hi.
Hi.
So we were just talking about golden showers. Before the break, the question was, what's the difference between, am I saying it the right way, Tom?
Yep.
A garbanzo bean.
Garbanzo.
Garbanzo bean and a chickpea. James.
I don't
This
know.
is a joke that I'm going to let you do the punchline for.
Wait, what's going on?
Trump never had a garbanzo bean on his face.
Chickpea on his face.
Hey, James, you got like...
We are torturing James today.
Tell us more about Trump's golden showers, because you want to talk about that a bit more.
Oh, I just think that everybody ought to. I just think that everybody ought to Google "I'm a Believer," and there's an article in which breaks it all down, what the 4 or 5 reasons are why, and it's basically it comes down to just his hatred of Obama, and that if this was a mattress that Obama slept on, just anything to do with Obama, he's just going to desecrate it, and that the idea that he would he's that petty and that small,
and his history with hookers, it just sort of breaks it down in very logical terms. I saw it too.
So the germaphobe defense doesn't hold water. As
no,
it were.
in fact, they say that a germaphobe is precisely the person who would do,
soil the mattress in that way.
Yeah, even if he wasn't involved in the actual peeing, he would think that was the dirtiest thing you could possibly do to someone, the nastiest thing you could do to someone.
Well, I think these P-tapes are P-tapes. I think these P-tapes are going to make us go wow for a long time.
Yeah.
Anywho, number 7, James.
Number 7.
I watched Lost in Space over the weekend, and
the new Netflix
series, and I know you watched it as well.
Little
and
bits.
You have some thoughts about it. I wasn't blown away by it. Okay, there was, I loved the series. I was a big fan of the 1960s thing, and the 1960s thing is basically, it's Swiss Family Robinson.
Yes.
The Robinson family Lost in Space. It's basically, I can hear the pitch meeting now. It's Gilligan's Island, but in space.
Right.
It was the time when the I Dream of Jeannie was ripping off Bewitched, and Monsters were ripping off.
It was Irwin
Adam's Family. Everybody was ripping off everybody, and so this is a family, and they're trapped in space. They crash land on a planet. There's a robot that helps out the young son Will.
Who they meet in this one. They don't actually take the robot with them.
Exactly. Yeah. The original had sniveling Dr. Smith, who was a cowardly, very effeminate man. One of the first gays on TV.
That's the thing. I was pre-gay, but
it,
I just related to Dr. Smith, and I was like, why is he so evil? But I was drawn to him, right?
I can sort of see the parallels,
Bitch.
actually. But like Paul
What have I done
Lynn
to you
and
today?
Charles
Yes.
Nelson Riley and Snagglepuss.
He's a Nance, I think. He's that character.
Yeah, he's an effeminate queen and mean. But this time they've taken away one of the great parts of the show, and they've reassigned it to Parker Posey, who is now the evil Dr. Smith. And I thought that was a mistake. I liked the idea that there was a gay man for kids to latch onto.
That's interesting.
And I think that they've taken away one of the most interesting parts.
What is the new Dr. Smith like?
The
as
new
a
Dr.
person?
Smith is just evil, sort of a psychopath. It's sort of nasty for no reason. I mean, we learn the reasons why later on in the show, but she's just. I really found all these characters were unlikable, and the writing was flat, and I found the adventures not interesting. The kid, I just wanted to punch in the face. I wasn't
Little Will?
Okay. Yeah. There's no hot guy on there. I remember in the 90s there was they did a remake with Matt LeBlanc
as Don.
Yeah, and Gary Oldman was Dr. Smith in that one. But that too, it suffered because it was too earnest, and it wasn't the camp fest that the original one, which is. For a show that keeps getting remade, they keep losing the reason why it was so special in the first place.
I agree with
What
that.
did you think?
I thought I didn't go as deep as you did. I didn't watch as many episodes, but I felt like it suffers from being too long each episode, because just when some tension starts to build, it's like then they stop and they talk, and it's this is a millennial family, right, with millennial problems, and the mother and father don't get along, and it's just like. It's fine, but it's not. It hasn't really found its tone.
Exactly, and for such a campy show that it was, and everyone realizes that it was a favorite of this generation. But it's also that thing. Remember the '90s when they kept remaking like the Flintstones and the Little Rascals and stuff. And the idea is that like millennials don't have an attachment to this show,
right?
So that's not their audience. They're going for the 50-year-olds who remember the show, but they aren't preaching. They're doing it like a millennial show, but the millennials don't care about it, and they're hoping to get the 50-year-olds.
That was the interesting thing about the trailer. It was all geared to millennials. I said to Tom, why is this young girl narrating this trailer? It was like it was all about her.
But the millennials, like I said, don't have an attachment to the show, so they don't care.
But
so
maybe kids will just find it new and find it interesting with no emotional attachment. But I know it is weird. Well, it's another reboot. Reboots.
But it's like in the 90s, the kids didn't have an attachment to Brady Bunch and the Flintstones and the Little Rascals and all the shows that they kept doing.
Right.
But they kept thinking that they were going to lure them in, and it never really worked.
Yeah.
Lost in Space, streaming now on Netflix. Tom, what have you got at number 6?
Number 6.
Speaking of Netflix, I took a walk on the wild side this weekend, and I watched a considerable amount because I have such trouble staying with anything anymore. But there's a documentary called 100 Men, and it is directed by a man,
this is,
and I want to say, New Zealand. He's from New Zealand, and he went back to visit his home, and he was thinking, well, his name's Paul Ormland. Me and names. And he started just innocently enough thinking like, I'm trying to remember everybody who I slept with. And so he started making a list.
As you do.
As you do. He only got to 100. And then he spends the rest of the documentary visiting a lot of them. Not all of them, because some of them, of course, are like...
No longer with us.
Or just, sailor on the dock. It's just...
Right.
It's,
a man behind a bush.
Yeah.
Can't be traced.
And
ask them how he was and what the sex was like if they remember it.
Well, it's not a sexy thing. It's sort of it's a personal journey for him to go back and reconnect with people.
I don't know if I would do that.
That's why I want to talk about it, because the documentary, it's really heartfelt, but it falls a little short. But it really starts to make you think, like, what if you had to go do the same thing yourself? Because it also is the guy's probably 50, and it really does talk about the history of gay people and how tormented everybody was at the beginning and how illegal it was, and it's legal now. And
do they all remember him?
I think once they were mic'd and stuff.
I did.
There wasn't like a big discover, like knock, knock, hunt you down.
yeah.
But people, and I'm very shallow, if people haven't been able to tell, but like, no, it's part of that thing that we're fascinated with here at World of Wonder, which is like, because I am one, but like old gays, like you start to see like, because, everybody when they're 20s and 30s has some level of hotness. And then you're seeing these people kind of like scraggly haired hippies, funny teeth, but they're talking about it. And everyone's willing to talk, everyone he approaches is willing to talk about it. But first of all,
So there's actually 100 men in it.
there's a little less than 100, but he counts them down, and then he'll hook up. He'll talk to somebody. Now that would be hot. Remember, we tried to do.
We did 101 Rent Boys.
Well,
yes, that's coming up. But
yes.
we pitched not too long ago, and we'll try again. And it was hard to cast, but we had a thing called X-Files. And it was the idea that you were going to, before, like you and I are going to get married, straight or gay, and we're going to talk to, I'm going to talk to everyone you've ever loved.
Yeah.
And you're going to talk to everybody I ever loved. In kind of this journey to find out who you really are.
Yeah, if I was going to marry you, James, which this morning seems unlikely, but I would audit your exes and go on a little journey.
X-audit, we called it.
Yeah.
X-audit.
Oh, well, no.
And what would they reveal?
Well, they would reveal, just a lot of, I can't even imagine the things that would come up. No.
And interesting you say that because we finally got the permission to do a presentation pilot. We sold it, and then we could not cast the motherfucker because people are really. I think so. This guy came the closest to it. I think it's fascinating. It still makes me wonder how can you do this as some sort of series.
When you meet your ex, I had a thing for one of my exes for a long time, and I finally went and saw him after like 10 years. And it was the most awful experience ever.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like,
there was nothing. There was nothing. It wasn't like it didn't look the same. I was like, who was this person? There was nothing. There was nothing there. At least to someone's grave, which sounds a bit morbid, there's a headstone. There's some sort of remembrance. But this person in the skin looked.
Right.
I was like, this nothing.
The thing is because
was
we
so weird.
changed so much,
Right.
and I'm such a
that's
different
true.
person that it's
we don't track it in ourselves, but they say every 7 years, every cell in your body has been replaced.
Yeah, and when I think of like some of the bad breakups and some of the just like who I was at the time and the weird chemsex I probably had, and they don't have good memories of me, and I don't have good memories of them, and.
But if you want to take a little journey, someone else's nostalgia journey, it's 100 Men on Netflix, currently streaming.
Number 5.
Well, not to outdo you, but you did 100 Men. I'm doing 101 Rent Boys.
What?
Which is a film World of Wonder made many years ago. Literally, actually last century.
It was 22 years ago.
Good God, yeah. And this was a time when, I guess, pre-internets. The internets were coming along. Grindr certainly didn't exist, and Tinder didn't. So,
But there was a fabulous hustler bar here in Los Angeles, which was the genesis. Yeah,
What
it was
was it
called
called?
Spotlight, and it had been around
Spotlight.
since the 1960s. And it was we took you guys there. I remember Fenton. Theron and I used to go all the time.
Snaggletooth, one-legged
I
hustler
loved
bar.
it. It was my favorite because you would always find, John Waters would be in the corner, and there'd always be some sort of fabulous people, some drag queens there. But there was a lot of toothless old hustlers in wheelchairs with one arm and no teeth, and they were still going. Still trying.
It
And we
opened
loved,
at 6 a.m.
It opened at 6 a.m. and there would be a line around the block of people waiting
Like people
to get.
coming to get their before drinks,
There would be a
before work
buffet
drinks.
there. There would be a buffet.
There was
and so,
like a crock pot or something,
yes,
right?
and everybody,
I went once, but it's famous. It was there until, 2 or 3 years ago?
About 5 years
Now it's
ago.
the Dream Hotel.
Yeah, it's some chic boutique.
But anyway, just to give it a
aspirational
little
hotel.
more,
Yes.
backstory is that we took you guys there and you loved it so much, and Theron was able to pitch this idea, I believe, to you, in which we got 101 hustlers, and every night we would go and pick up, and you would give them $50. I'm sorry to keep going and on.
Keep going.
Yeah, we would give them $50 and take them to a hotel room, and they would tell us the story.
Tell us the stories. And we paid them on camera because, look, the big documentary tradition is you do not pay your subjects.
And people were horrified
But
that
our
you did
whole
this.
point was, of course we should pay them.
They're
hustlers,
hustlers.
number one.
And for their
and
time.
number two, for their time.
Yeah.
And we just want their stories.
But-
so we paid them on camera, and which the hustlers didn't mind. One of them said it was very demeaning. And we also gave them a numbered T-shirt to wear. So as we went
You
through...
did reduce them to numbers, yeah.
Yeah, well, but it was at the same time that 101 Dalmatians was out. That was
Right.
also a sort of part genesis of the idea. And then we took all these, Randy did all the interviews, and we took all the interviews, transcribed them, and chopped them up into sort of various themes. It's a fascinating film.
But now some of them are very, they're all very world weary, and they've been around the block a few times. I remember one guy put a cigarette out in his anus. There was a lot of.
I don't remember that bit.
Oh, I think you should go back.
It's time to revisit.
Yeah,
go to the rushes.
Some of them have really horror stories of life on the streets. Some of them are really funny, and some of them are young queens and old queens, and it's a fascinating documentary. You got a lot of blowback from it, if I remember.
We did, yes. It was quite controversial. I think some of the sex workers didn't really approve of it, and it was controversial in every respect. But I think what was motivating us to make it was also, why should there be so much shame around this idea of sex as a transaction? I mean, we go to the therapist and pour out our problems and pay for that. We go shopping. I mean, everything in our lives to some degree is transactional. Why should sex be excluded from that? Why should that be full of shame? And I mean, yes, you're right, James. There are a lot of hardships, and there's a sort of cycle of reinforcing violence and loathing and hatred, which is tragic, because really so many stories were just profoundly moving of lonely people that these kids would give a connection to. And it wasn't necessary. I mean, it was some fabulous, weird, interesting sex, but at the same time, there was also just human contact.
And you also have to remember that this was the very end, the tail end of the AIDS epidemic. And so a lot of them were survivors, and they were people who we were sort of celebrating the people of that generation.
Yes.
I had a very good friend, still a friend, but in the 90s, he was a hustler. And he would say that 90% of his hookups were people wanted attention and wanted to speak.
Yes.
So it was absolutely,
Yeah.
it was less about sex and it was more about.
They're the therapists for a generation of people.
Exactly right.
And they're the people who, like, sometimes they just want to cuddle or talk.
Yeah.
And
I also asked him, I said, what happens if you hook up, I'm so shallow, if you hook up with a guy and he's really not attractive? He goes, I always find something attractive about them.
Yeah, and they really do. They can find beauty in anything.
But he said,
that's a good lesson. That's a good life lesson.
Yeah,
We
totally.
Should,
He said, because we all, by the way, we're all less than 6 degrees from being hooked. We all put ourselves in situations. I put myself in sexual situations that I just didn't get paid for, but they were the same kind of thing. And they would say, like, if somebody has beautiful hands, I'd say they have beautiful hands. If somebody, and I love that. I thought that was kind of poetic.
Well, Steve, I just want to saw himself as a descendant of a pre-Christian pagan tradition where priests and priestesses, in return for a contribution, gave of themselves to the supplicants. I just thought it was like, so it was almost like a religious calling. And the other thing I'd forgotten that was just going back through notes and memories and things was, of course, of River Phoenix, My Own Private Idaho. And I think he played, in a way, the ultimate hustler. I think all these elements and layers were present in that performance in a preternaturally powerful way. I don't think he was just acting a script. I think River Phoenix was experiencing or embodying
Do you
something.
think that he went full Stanislavski for that and went
think,
out
I
and,
think
and
so.
picked
And I
up
think
men?
I think it was inherently in his nature too.
I also
think
remember
it's
around
who he
that time
was.
is when Hustler White came out, and that was if you remember the Bruce Bruce with and that was really sort of a seminal.
I have a question. If I want to see 101 Rent Boys,
I'm
where
so
do I
glad
see
you
it?
asked. 101 Rent Boys is currently streaming on Wow Presents Plus, James. It's our streaming network.
No, I know it's fantastic.
Have you subscribed?
No, I haven't, because I'm
Still
waiting
not
for
subscribing.
my birthday is coming up, and it might be a good birthday
I
present.
just bought you a suit. Oh, I have to tell you missed the Trina Turk sample sale.
What?
Yes.
No,
Anyway, Wow Presents Plus, $3.99 a month, which is less than the price of the latte you hold in your hand, Tom Campbell.
That I don't have because I can't afford.
And there's lots and lots of documentaries, not just 101 Rent Boys, and web series, and tons of Wow celebrities and queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, of course. Oh, and May the 4th, we launch, May the 4th be with you, Drag Race Thailand is coming
which
to Wow
is so
Presents
much
Plus.
fun. Oh, that is just a ball.
In English.
Yeah.
Translated.
It's so funny, though, because I've been watching it without the English, and I've been watching it without subtitles, and you don't even need the subtitles because it's a universal, the drag is a universal language.
It's a visual spectacle, right? Yeah. In fact, maybe it's better without the language. Anyway, take a quick break. So here's our question. What is the average annual income for a prostitute in the United States? Let's say
More
sex
than
worker.
what I get.
This is a Wow Report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM.
listening to World of Wonders Wow Report.
Hello, my name's Alaska. What's yours? I'm going to be at RuPaul's DragCon May 11, 12, and 13 at the Los Angeles Convention Center. Get your tickets at RuPaulsDragCon.com. I'll see you there.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton. I'm here with Tom and James and Blake. And before the break, we were talking about 101 Rent Boys, which is streaming on Wow Presents Plus. James, you said that the question was, how much does the average sex worker, let's say prostitute, earn in the United States? And you said it was more than you earn.
I'm sure.
But you did have a spell, didn't you?
Where I was a prostitute?
I'm quoting from your book.
More about that in number 3.
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But there was a week where I did I went out to the stroll and I tried to make money. And I remember I was in a tutu and clown nose and antlers, and nobody would pick me up. And I found one guy finally stopped the car for me, and I was so excited that afterwards I forgot to ask him for money.
So there you go. That's why.
But anyway, I'm thinking
how much do you think it is?
This has got to be tax free. I mean, like you aren't reporting it for taxes, so you're probably walking away with maybe $70,000 a year. For this is the low end.
It's probably some sad number like 20,000.
You gotta go high end, like 150. What was that Richard Gere movie?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that very few sex workers are high end like that, and so basically you're just
American Gigolo.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's basically you probably walk away with 50 or 70,000.
$225,000.
Yes!
Wow.
Go, sex workers, go. That's the average?
Yeah, that's what I put the.
I'm
You mean the girls
The
who work
source.
the
There's a
tunnel?
website-
You think?
Well, I guess it adds up.
I guess most of it goes back to drugs and.
Well, Stormy Daniels got 130,000.
But I was thinking that not all of them are in that range, though.
Well, I just think it's really important that we stop shaming sex workers.
No,
I
no,
think
no,
they
no,
really
no.
do an amazing thing. No one here is shaming them, but I think they do an amazing thing. And in fact, Stormy Daniels really is emerging as a national hero.
Totally.
You know what she's
I
doing.
think she's fabulous.
Okay, let's keep counting down the top 10 things that made us go,
Wow.
This week, Tom, number 4.
Number 4.
I didn't go. I don't think anybody here went.
I didn't go.
But it doesn't matter. Beyonce at Coachella, even though it happened over the weekend, has
Beychella is what they're calling it now.
Beychella has been dominating our thoughts, our prayers.
It's happening again this weekend.
Is she doing it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, Billy's going. He got tickets to go twice.
I didn't even know that she has
Yeah,
twice.
it's the same
Will it be
thing.
the same exact show?
I don't know.
Knowing her, she'll
Knowing
probably do a
her,
completely
probably,
different show.
yeah.
But I will say that I've been reading a lot about it, and they're saying that it's a feat of engineering unsurpassed in mankind, where they managed to they have an hour to load in and out, and they were saying that a show of this size, it would take 10,000 people 10 hours to do, and somehow she does it with 100 people in an hour.
So what was so special
It
about
has changed the way people do
But
concerts.
what-
It is nobody has ever done a concert as amazing as
But
this.
what was amazing about it? I mean,
It's
I've
fucking Beyonce is what it is.
I've seen her stadium show and it was phenomenal. But
Yeah.
but what is it about this performance that is so
100
stratospherically?
Just because she gave everything, right? 100 backup dancers. She had the marching bands and
She had 100 women playing violins. She had
she reunited Destiny's Child.
Destiny's Child for the
sang
first
with
time in
Jay-Z.
25
She
years.
reunited Solange and Jay-Z.
Solange, exactly.
Yeah.
Post elevator
But
scandal.
she had like 5 costume changes, something like that. Something that is outrageous at Coachella.
And my favorite
for
thing
her to
too is
do.
that presumably when she changed outfits, she changed nail color.
Yes.
And that was something that when I worked on the Dolly Parton show 100 years ago, we would be waiting on a Friday night for scene changes, and bitch would come out with a new costume, a new wig, and new fingernails.
Well, do you remember when Gaga did the Super Bowl and she changed makeup halfway through?
Yeah.
And that was something that was outrageous. Like, how do you manage to do that?
Yeah.
And Beyonce she pulls off a show like nobody else. We are living in a really amazing time.
Here's confessions of a middle-aged gay man. I can technically appreciate everything Beyonce does. I haven't related to her music for a few years, maybe
I don't know
more.
if you can say
And so,
that.
and I'm not. It's my fault. It's my problem. I'm working with it. I have to go home with me, people. You know, don't come after me because I have to deal with this on a day-to-day, hour-by-hour basis. But I appreciate the technicality, and I'm wondering if when you're growing up as a kid, they say you should learn a language by 3 or 4 because your mind is open to languages. I'm wondering if my gay diva mind is of an age where I can't fully absorb the fantasticness of Beyonce.
Well, here's the thing with Lemonade, okay?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't get it either because I'm of the mind that you're at this stratospheric level right now. We want hits. We want danceable songs. We want something you can hum along to.
I need a hook.
And you need a hook. And Lemonade is sort of this dirge, this sort of atonal dirge that just drifts off in all these different directions. And there's no.
I'm not sure you can say that.
Place all your comments to James St. James now.
Just give us the single ladies. We want a top 10 bop from her.
I'm old
And
school that way.
I understand that you're doing art and you're
Yes.
this is an artistic thing and an accomplishment that is unparalleled. But I think that's something that
I always appreciate Beyonce because as much as I love Diana Ross, Beyonce has gone to Diana Ross, she's gone to Michael Jackson, and she's gone beyond.
She's gone to Tina Turner. She's done it all.
She's gone beyond, but she is more than an artist. She is a movement. She's a force of nature.
But I also don't believe for a second that all these concepts are coming from her because I've heard her talk and she's dumb as a box of rocks. Okay, so I think she surrounds herself with a lot of artists.
Well,
and a
she
lot
may
of
be very savvy in her terms.
Exactly.
But I also don't mind artists being vessels for other artists.
No, that's true.
I'm a
I
vessel.
agree. But like I said, I just want a bop from her once in a while. I want her to throw us a bone.
That's it. Beyonce. Hi,
Oh, look,
thanks for
there's
listening
Edward.
today.
Edward was just at Coachella. He looks a little ragged.
Yes, he does. But
So-
Beyonce, please, you're listening. It's okay. Solange, tell Beyonce if she's not on the radio. Give us a bop. One bop.
I didn't even get to talk about Republican billionaire Philip Anschutz, who
Yeah.
owns Coachella.
Wait, are we done?
Well, shouldn't we be?
There's the
We've got to
darkness.
move on.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, James, number 3. What made you go, wow?
Number 3.
Well, you know how you guys are always like, I was just with Oprah and we're doing a movie together, and you're always like, I was just with Diane von Furstenberg and Michelle Obama, and we're doing a movie, and then nobody ever says, James, what are you doing? Like nobody ever asks me what's going on with my life.
James, what's going on with your life?
It's funny you should ask. Because I have a play opening off Broadway next month.
Darling, no.
Oh, my God.
I do. Actually, it's a showcase for Broadway Bears Actors Equity. Wait, what is it?
Broadway Bears Actors for Equity.
Yeah.
Broadway cares. Equity fights AIDS.
But they take off all their clothes on Broadway Bears.
Yeah.
No, this is Broadway Cares.
This is a benefit it's a benefit for Broadway Cares. Equity Fights AIDS
Yes.
is what it is, and it's at the New World Stages in New York on May 29th. It's a show it's an unpublished novella that I wrote in the 90s, and I believe that World of Wonder sat on it for 20 years before I managed to finagle it back without doing anything. So.
Oh, the level, the amount
I
of bitterness.
remember
It's like-
Fenton and Randy every day meeting how they could thwart James St. James.
The James St. James, who doesn't have any money, was paid to write this freaking manuscript. But let's say we'll move on,
That was 22 years ago. So that money has dribbled out. Okay. I haven't, that has not,
What
compound interest has not worked its magic
That's a
on
good
that.
point.
So anyway,
What's the book about?
It's funny you should mention because it's about my experiences as a drag queen prostitute, and it was when I was
That one week.
That 1 week when I was on there, and the people that I met, and because I was living with a drag queen who was a sex worker,
Yep.
and she was the one who kept saying, you're so broke, why don't you just come out to the stroll with me? And so I did, and I'm a little worried because it is the idea of a cis man who is sex working and doing it just for a lark, as opposed why the sex workers got to be drug addicts, and why the drag queen has to be a sex worker. I don't know. There's a lot of things that I'm worried about. Anyway,
Because
you
your
gonna go
life is no longer politically correct. your actual life. You can't tell your story anymore.
Well, but I do think I think that Raja is involved in it, and I think that there's a bunch of queens that are doing it, and it's very exciting. I haven't had a chance to watch it.
Are you going to go see it?
It's a musical. Yeah, I'm going to go at the end of the month, and
What's the title of it?
it's called. It was Diary of a Mad Queen, is what I did, and this is just called Mad Queen.
Mad Queen.
Yeah, and
Mad Queen disease.
I'll be posting it on my Twitter and my
That sounds a little
Instagram
too
and
far,
Facebook and everything.
And aren't you also going on tour in the UK?
I am going
Because
on
we
tour.
never talk about you or what you
Yeah,
do.
I'm going with some of the drag queens. I'm going with this current winner, Sasha Velour, Trinity the Tuck
Poor
Taylor,
James.
one of the
Poor
most
ignored,
amazing,
downtrodden James.
one of the most amazing queens on the planet right now, who's really moving the needle as far as what drag is and really changing things up. Hungry is her name. She's from Germany. Really fantastic.
Hungry from Germany?
Yeah. And then also Vanderlaan Odd, the winner of the Boulet Brothers Dragula.
Who are we booking to fill in James' seat while he's on tour in Europe?
I know.
A Pat Rock.
I'll be in Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, London, and someplace else. I can't remember.
And will you be singing, and I'm telling you I'm not going? Your usual
I'm
closer?
doing my one-woman show. I'm still here. No, I'm the MC, and I'm doing sort of the Joel Grey thing, and I'm trying to get my outfit together for
How
that.
exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
I really want to liven things up right now by talking about number 2.
Number 2.
Single-use plastics.
What?
You've had a week, Fenton.
We are drowning in plastic. And do you remember that scene in The Graduate, which I guess was 1967? The Graduate, what's his name?
Oh, plastics.
Dustin
Yes,
Hoffman.
one
I
word
got
for
one word for
you.
you, kiddo.
Plastics. And I guess, that we certainly as a culture and civilization have made good on that. Because,
But when plastics are still a relatively new phenomena in mankind, right?
Yeah.
It's a byproduct of the atomic age back in the 1920s.
Yes.
Exactly, right?
And this is the thing, plastic doesn't really degrade. I mean, 1,000 years it will degrade. So you can say that almost every single piece of plastic ever created and produced is still with us.
Yeah.
And some of I like my facts, but some of them are insane. 10 tons a day of plastic in the ocean in LA alone. 35 billion plastic water bottles a year in the USA alone. 10.4 billion condoms a year. 1 million plastic bags a minute. I mean, it's just, and we throw away enough plastic to circle the earth 4 times. I mean, it's like...
No, but also another
it's just a
byproduct I
problem.
remember of that era was rubber, which wasn't around.
Right.
When did rubber come around?
Well, vulcanized rubber, I think, was invented in the
1800s?
1880 something. But it really became, a great application for vulcanized rubber was condoms, single-use condoms.
Mm-hmm.
My Aunt Hazel.
And they really, before that, they really did use sheepskin.
Yeah, and they
right in the
reused them, too.
1700s and the 1800s.
My Aunt Hazel, who's my surviving relative on my dad's side, who's 92, I think, she, in World War II, when I was talking to her, she worked at a mica factory.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you can see through mica, it's a very thin. Because they used to make cases for the soldiers. I don't know if they were food cases or if they were ammo cases, but instead of plastic, there was no plastic, they used mica. Isn't that interesting?
Is that like Formica?
No, mica is like
what is
it's like
Formica?
It's something not Oh no, plastics.
This is just this week's garbage. Look at this. Box Fresh. Oh, Box Fresh. Look at that.
What is that?
Yeah,
That is the
packaging.
wrapping for your Box Fresh. Keep it fresh food. Your
get
berry basket. Because I love my
yes.
the bag from the Trina Turk sample sale, James. Sorry about that. More jumbo berries.
It is.
Yeah,
You go to
you get me anything
You
at the
go
church?
to.
I didn't, because I just bought you a suit, bitch.
Baked cheese.
I just bought you a pair of pants, though.
You did buy it with your own money?
No, you bought them.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I'm getting the short end of the sartorial stick. I got nothing.
Oh, girl.
It is horrible. You go to Whole Foods and you think you're doing so well by eating organic, and I get food delivered that's really good, and then it's all in plastic.
Hold on. I was just looking at a bunch of Cecil Beaton photos in the 1920s of the bright young things, and he used to wrap them all in cellophane at the time, and that was sort of it was shiny and clear and plastic. And I was thinking, what was so special about that? And everyone would ooh and ah. But apparently, cellophane was another thing that was just invented during that period,
cellophane.
and that's why all his pictures feature cellophane, because it was the bright new shiny thing.
Right.
And also the song Mr. Cellophane from the Chicago, which is in the 1920s. So cellophane at the same time.
It was the cat's meow.
It was the big new thing.
It
yeah.
sort of is in a way because it makes things shiny and new, right? And that's sort of like what drives the consumer.
We used to use a lot of wax paper when I was young.
Oh, I love wax
There
paper.
was cellophane, but my mom wouldn't. You wouldn't use plastic for everything.
Do people still use wax paper?
Probably not.
In fact, if you wrap your cheese in plastic, it goes moldy really quickly. You should put it in wax paper.
I'm going to buy wax paper when I go home.
Please reconsider using single plastic, like
I was going to say,
disposable
but I
cups.
don't like water in milk in the cartons. That doesn't taste right to me.
Right. Glass then, or drink it from the tap.
I do drink a lot of tap water.
Tap
I
water
do.
is fine,
yeah.
right?
Except for
Unless
the
you're in Flint.
LA tap water is a little bubbly. I don't know if you've noticed that lately. It's a little fizzy.
You can get some kind of filtration system.
Spritz hot, yes.
Okay, quick break, and when we come back, number one thing of the week, and of course our resistor of the week. So I report on Radio Andy, SiriusXM.
What did you get from the Trina Sturk sale?
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
How's that latte, sis? Oh my God, sis. You know what? It's actually pretty good. You know, I only paid $3.99.
Just $3.99?
Yeah.
What else can you do with $3.99?
Well, I couldn't possibly afford you, but I could definitely afford a monthly subscription to Wow Presents Plus.
Oh my God, $3.99? That's cheap. Like me.
And you can have access to all exclusive content.
Ad-free.
Ad-free.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm here, Phantom Bailey, with Tom Campbell, James St. James, Blake Jacobs, and we've been counting down, as we usually do, the top 10 things that make us go, wow. You can read all about these things on the Wow Report, worldofwonder.net/Radio Andy, but let's reveal it's so obvious what the number one thing has to be this week, and perhaps for a few months to come, right?
Number one.
What is James Comey?
James Comey.
Oh.
See, I don't think it's so obvious because I also think it's the Sean Hannity. So much happened this week.
Oh, you're
but
right.
The James Comey book and subsequent interviews.
Well, how do we? Because still don't know how to feel about James Comey. I still feel like he's a good guy. He's a bad guy. He's a whistleblower, but he's also.
I'm going to break it down for you.
Okay.
Yes. Because first of all, Trump's abuse of power equals bad. Comey revealing Trump's abuse of powers equals good.
Yes.
That's just the starting place.
Yes.
And it gets much more complex.
But we were angry with him about
We
the Hillary
were.
thing.
And what we've learned is that things are not black and white. Does he have hubris? Probably. Has he been attacked and maligned? Yes. Does he feel a need to protect his reputation with this book?
But is he also?
And does he have the humility to admit that he has an ego? Yes, he does. Try getting Trump to admit that he has an ego.
But he
James.
does sort of seem just like he's a little too pay attention to me. He's a little too needy.
I don't think
Oh
people
my
can
God.
rise to be presidents and head of the FBI and these high things without human flaws, without a bit of hubris, without a bit of like, I can do it.
At least he admits to it. He has a sufficient distance from himself to look at himself,
Yes.
unlike
But
the person
but
currently
by the same token,
destroying
he's also
the country.
involved in the middle of a legal matter. And shouldn't he have waited until after it all plays out to write the book?
No, because he's doing it as a service to his country, a higher loyalty. This is the way he
Is
sees
he,
that he
though?
can help.
Yes.
Or is this?
James, here's the problem. Who's really calling out Trump for who he is?
Nobody.
Nobody. This is the head of the FBI saying this person is morally, ethically unfit, which
But
is
isn't that?
the
But don't you
truth.
do that on the witness stand as
No.
opposed to
There's
putting
no
it-
time if you want to save the country. This is my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree.
It's this idea, and people say he's first of all, the news organizations are full of crap, all of them, because they're like, it's too salacious that he said X, Y, and Z, and that's all they'll talk about.
just want to talk about
right.
PP.
But they do talk
PP.
about, he talks about the PP. I love the part where he says, I shook his hand, It was smaller than mine, but not unusually small. It's like Comey didn't bring that to the national attention. As a lawman, as someone entering a room or a crime scene or just any situation, you want him to have those powers of observation. He kept notes because he had a sinking feeling in his stomach that nothing truthful was happening.
And that whatever he said happened would be denied.
Yes,
He'd be accused
which is
of being
absolutely
a liar.
true.
And not only did he take notes, he was smart enough to go after the meeting and tell his colleagues about the meeting, and they took notes.
Right.
So there's two sets of
and
notes.
not for the book, for
just for verification,
yes.
because the fucking truth fucking matters.
No, I'm not arguing that the
Of
truth
course.
doesn't matter
I'm
or
just-
any of that. I'm just saying that you're in the he has a chance to really do something on the witness stand and to really take the guy down because he's in the middle of it. But is he blowing it all by doing this and by it looks a little sort of like it's a money grab and it's a grab for attention as opposed to, because we know that he wants attention because of the thing that he was against Trump in July, and then in October he came out against Hillary, and so the Republicans were mad at the.
Wait. He wasn't against Trump and he wasn't against Hillary. He was doing. He goes to great
But
pains
he fucked up Hillary.
Explain that he was doing his job,
But
and that he wasn't
you were angry with him in
inclining one way.
October.
Of course we were, but that doesn't mean he was against Hillary.
It doesn't mean he tried, and maybe he
to do the right
failed,
thing.
or yes, he tried to do the right thing.
I just think that it's a matter of due process, and that if you're in the middle, if you're going to be a witness in one of the biggest trials in the world, you don't fuck up your chances of getting your story across by putting out a salacious tell-all book. You wait until after the trial
not really
to do.
salacious.
I don't
is it?
think there may not be an
I haven't
after.
read it.
No, but there may not be an after.
there may not be the
I don't
what-
think. What are you waiting for with Trump?
Right.
When is the heat going to come down on him? And it's finally starting to. I hope. But I think this
Not
guy
necessarily,
also
right?
he's saying I walked in and Trump has no problem. He's sort of playing Trump's game.
Yes.
And I think you have to. The idea they go low, we go high. Nope.
No.
We don't just sit quietly and wait for the world to unravel.
I kind of
we
agree.
go and we say, this is what happened. This is what I saw. I'm going to be as articulate and
And he's already been so
balanced as I
hated
can
by
be.
every single side. He's got nothing to lose, which is great. It gives him a
Yes.
certain power. I just want to read one piece from it.
Yes.
It's a tiny detail because, James, actually read the 5-hour transcript that George Stephanopoulos did.
After you finish all of
Just
Dark
read
Shadows.
it. But anyway, so this is the first dinner Comey has with Trump. On the plates was a card, a calligraphy card. So, very nice script. You always see these at the White House. And it listed the menu for the dinner we were about to have. And so I remember he held his up and said, they write these by hand. And I said, a calligrapher? And he kind of gave me this look and he said, they write them by hand. And so I kind of let it go. And that's a quote from the interview. Trump doesn't know what a calligrapher is.
Yeah.
He was thinking, isn't that a girl, a playmate that he was with when Marla was pregnant?
Is that
Isn't that her
Caligula's
name? It's Calligrapher?
Caligula?
I just think
is she a
it's-
Roman emperor's daughter?
He wouldn't go that far.
I
back.
just think his level of detail and recall is fantastic
I
and
love it.
fascinating. Hey, look, that's all we've got time for today. Thanks for listening. Watch RuPaul's Drag Race Thursdays, 8 p.m. on VH1 with amazing guests.
Yes.
You just won't be able to guess who they are. And Wow's brand new series, Sell It Like Sahant, starring...
so cute.
Ryan
Star-
Sahant.
Yeah, it's $1 Million Listing. He goes and helps people
Yes,
on Broadway.
Wednesdays at 10 p.m. after Housewives of New York.
Well, it's been fantastic, you guys.
Fun as usual. I think we perked up James a little bit. I think he's leaving happier than when he came
Yeah, I
in.
think so. Same time, same place next week.
Let's do it.
Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
Wow!